Have you ever wondered, what lies beyond life? Today, we bring you a story that will challenge everything you thought you knew. Meet Lucas, a young man like any other, whose life changed forever after a near-death experience. What he discovered not only transformed his life, but revealed an astonishing truth. God is not what we've been told. Get ready for a journey that will leave you breathless and make you question everything you thought you knew. This is something you can't miss. I never thought that a simple hiking trip would take me to the brink of death and beyond. My name is Lucas, and this is the story of how I discovered that everything I thought I knew about God was wrong. It was the summer of 1995, and my life was like that of any college student. Classes, parties, and a constant feeling that something was missing. I was studying literature, but the books, though filled with wisdom, couldn't answer the questions that haunted me. Why are we here? What happens after death? Does God really exist? It was my younger sister, Clara, who pulled me out of my comfort zone. "You need a break," she told me one afternoon as I drowned in a sea of existential doubts. "Let's go to the mountains of Colorado. The fresh air will do you good." Though I wasn't a nature fan, something in her voice convinced me. I had no idea that this trip would be the last day of my life and the first of a new existence. The first few days were calm. The scenery was breathtaking. Mountains that seemed to touch the sky, crystal clear rivers winding through the valleys, and a silence that made you feel part of something bigger. Clara and I camped near a cliff, a place the locals called the Soul's Viewpoint. The name seemed curious to me at the time, but now I understand why. Everything changed on the fourth night. An unexpected storm caught us while we prepared dinner. The sky, which had been clear just moments before, darkened in seconds. The wind howled like a furious beast, and the rain fell with a force that seemed to want to drag us into the abyss. Clara and I tried to hold the tent, but a gust of wind swept me off my feet. I remember the moment when my hands slipped, Clara's desperate scream, and then the fall. Time stopped. I felt neither pain nor fear, just a betrayal. I was falling, but not into darkness. Instead, I was heading towards a golden light that seemed to embrace me in a warm hug. Suddenly, I was no longer in my body. It was as if my consciousness had expanded, becoming something larger, more pure. The light wasn't just something I could see. It was something that enveloped me and made me understand that everything was all right. Then he appeared. He wasn't an old man with a white beard sitting on a throne, as I had been taught in church. He wasn't a figure. He was a form of being. He was a vast and indescribable presence that radiated such intense love that it made me cry. There was no judgment or punishment, only understanding. And in that moment, I knew that everything I thought I knew about God was wrong. The presence didn't speak with words, but its messages reached directly into my soul. It showed me my life not as a series of random events, but as a perfect tapestry of experiences designed for my growth. Every person I had met, every decision I had made, had a deeper purpose. There were no mistakes, only lessons. But this was just the beginning. The presence took me further to a place where time and space didn't exist. I saw the entire universe not as a collection of cold and distant galaxies, but as a living, conscious, loving entity. Every star, every planet, every atom was interconnected in an infinite web of energy. And at the center of it all was the same light that now enveloped me. It was as if the universe were a dream and God the dreamer. However, it wasn't all peace and love. The presence also showed me human suffering, wars, injustices. Although it was hard to understand at first, it made me see that Even in suffering, there is a purpose. Pain is not punishment, but a tool for awakening, to remind us who we truly are. In that moment, I felt my mind explode. My whole life, I had believed in a punishing God, in heaven and hell, in final judgment. But now I understood that God is not a judge, but a force of pure love that guides us, protects us, and allows us to experience life in all its forms. Religions, with their dogmas and rules, are merely human attempts to understand something that is beyond our comprehension. And then came the hardest moment. The presence gave me a choice: to stay in that light, in that state of infinite peace, or to return to my body, to my life on earth. It wasn't an easy decision. I knew that returning would mean facing pain, limitations, and confusion. But I also knew I had something to share, a truth that could help others awaken. With tears in my eyes, though I no longer had eyes, I chose to return. In an instant, the light began to fade, and I felt my consciousness returning to my body. I woke up in a hospital, with the monotonous sound of a heart monitor marking the rhythm of my existence. My body was battered and in pain, but what struck me the most was the feeling of emptiness. That light, that infinite love, was no longer with me. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream, an hallucination caused by the trauma of the fall. But something inside me knew that wasn't the case. What I had experienced was real, more real than anything I had felt before. Clara was by my side, her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw me open my eyes, her face lit up. "Lucas, you're alive!" she shouted, hugging me with a strength that reminded me I still had a physical body. The doctors couldn't explain how I had survived a fall from over 30 meters. For them, it was a miracle. For me, it was a confirmation that my journey wasn't over. The first few days were a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, I was grateful to be alive, to be able to hug Clara, to feel the sun on my skin. But on the other, I felt lost. How could I return to a normal life after experiencing something so profound? I tried to talk to Clara about what I had been through, but words were not enough. How could I explain the unexplainable? How could I describe a light that wasn't light, a love that wasn't love, a presence that wasn't just a presence? Over time, I began to notice changes in myself. I no longer saw the world as I once did. People, objects, even the air I breathed seemed to have a different vibration. It was as if I had awakened to a parallel reality, one that had always been there, but that I could not see. Every person I met, every situation I faced, was an opportunity to practice the unconditional love I had experienced. But it wasn't all easy. The experience also brought me a sense of loneliness. I knew that most people wouldn't understand what I had gone through. My friends looked at me with concern when I tried to talk about it. It was always like, "I know your mind has played tricks on you." Even Clara, although supportive, couldn't fully grasp it. One night, while I was alone in my room, I decided to write down everything I remembered. The words flowed as if something inside me was guiding them. I wrote about the light, about the presence, about infinite love. I wrote about the universe as a living being, about the interconnectedness of all things, about the purpose of suffering. And as I wrote, I felt that light returning to me, not with the same intensity, but enough to remind me that I wasn't alone. Little by little, I began to share my story, not with everyone, but with those I felt could understand. One day, in a cafe, I met an older man named Miguel. He had a calm look, as if he had witnessed things most couldn't imagine. I told him about my experience, and to my surprise, he didn't look at me with skepticism. Instead, he nodded in understanding. "You have seen the truth," he told me. "But now comes the hard part, living it." Miguel became a sort of guide for me. He spoke of others who had similar experiences, of how they struggled to integrate that wisdom into their everyday lives. He taught me that it wasn't about abandoning the world, but living it in a more conscious, more loving way. But it wasn't all peace and harmony. Sometimes the intensity of the experience overwhelmed me. I dreamed of the light, of the presence, and I would wake up feeling a nostalgia so deep it made me cry. Other times I felt furious watching the world continue to function with selfishness, with hatred, with fear. How could people not see what I had seen? How could they go on living as if nothing mattered? It was then that I understood that my mission was not to change the world, but to change myself. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion was a way to bring a bit of that light into the world. And even though sometimes I felt small, insignificant, I remembered the words of the presence. You are part of something larger. Today, years after that fall, I still feel that light within me. It's not something I can explain with words, but it guides every step I take. I know that God is not what we've been told. He is greater, more loving, more mysterious. And though I don't have all the answers, I know we're here to learn, to grow, to remember that we are part of something much bigger. Over time, I learned to live with this new perspective. I was no longer the same Lucas who climbed the mountains of Colorado. Now I saw the world with different eyes, as if I had lifted a veil that had kept me from seeing the true nature of things. Every person, every situation was an opportunity to practice the unconditional love I had experienced. I left university and dedicated myself to traveling, not as a tourist, but as a seeker. I wanted to share my story not as an absolute truth, but as an invitation to question, to explore, to seek answers beyond what we've been taught. In each city, in every town, I found people who, like me, had had experiences they couldn't explain. Some called them near-death experiences, others spiritual awakenings, but they all shared something in common: a deep understanding that there is something more, something that goes beyond what we can see and touch. One of the most impactful moments of this journey happened in a small town in Mexico. I met a woman named Rosa, a healer who had devoted her life to helping others. When I told her my experience, she looked at me with a wise smile and said, "You have seen the golden thread that connects everything. Now your job is to weave with it." Her words resonated within me like an echo of the presence I had felt in that light. Rosa taught me that it's not about convincing others of what we've seen, but about living in a way that inspires others to seek their own truth. She showed me how love is not just a feeling, but an active force that can heal, transform, and unite. With her, I learned to use my experience not as a dogma, but as a tool to serve. But it wasn't all easy. There were moments of doubt, of fear, of wanting to return to the safety of my old life. Sometimes the intensity of the experience overwhelmed me, and I wondered if it would have been better to stay in that light, in that state of infinite peace. But then I remembered the words of the presence. You are part of something bigger, and that gave me the strength to carry on. Today, years after that fall, my life is very different. I no longer seek answers in books or religions. I find them in every sunrise, in every smile, in every act of kindness. I know that God is not what we've been told. God is not a distant and punishing being, but a force of pure love that guides us, protects us, and allows us to experience life in all its forms. Religion, although well-intentioned, they are merely human attempts to understand something that goes beyond our comprehension. There is no need to fear God or follow strict rules to earn His favor. God is love, and love does not judge, does not punish, does not demand. It simply is. My mission now is simple: to live according to that truth, I don't always succeed. Sometimes I get angry, frustrated, and get lost in the trivialities of life. But always at some point during the day, I remember that light, that presence, and I feel reconnected. This is my story. It is not an ending, but a beginning. A beginning that continues every day, with every breath, with every act of love. And if anything that I have lived resonates with you, perhaps it's because you too are ready to awaken. If this story made you think or touched your heart, don't forget to like it and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Let us know in the comments what you think. Do you believe God is more than what we've been taught? And don't go away, because right now on screen, we are leaving you a video that dives deeper into these revelations. Keep watching.